This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Shahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellow Wall podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 487 of the Yellow Wall Pod. I'm your host Stefan Butzko, and today we will talk about the scoreless draw in Bremen. And it's going to be the first assessment of the transfer window since it closed. For all that and more, joins me Matthias Zug. Hello Matthias, how are you doing?
I am doing well, definitely more lively than the scoreboard on the weekend. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm feeling much more alive. I think we just agreed on the episode title, which is just the XG number, 0.3 to 0.6. And I must say, when I saw the final XG post-match of the Bremen game, I found surprising is that Dortmund actually had a higher XG than Bremen, to be honest, because I felt like Bremen had a much better scoring chance overall than Dortmund, but maybe I don't even know what Dortmund's highest XG was. It probably was the Schlotterbeck header of the corner. Could that be? Yeah, I can actually
it looks like Schlotterbeck and Julian Brandt.
Yes. I don't even remember the Julian Brandt.
I struggled to remember that as well. And then you had a Waldemar Anton, which the Waldemar Anton one was really early in the match, when he took the ball down, controlled it, turned, and then finished like a defender.
Incorrect. 33rd minute.
Okay, well, it felt like really early because I'm trying to blank out the first 30 minutes.
Yeah, it happened 3 minutes into the game.
Yeah.
Anyway, hello everyone. I'm also doing okay. Yes, we are here to talk about this beautiful game in Bremen that happened on Saturday. And Matthias, obviously we already delved right into the stats, and I have a few more alerting numbers that I'm not too fussed about. But first of all, I don't know if I wanna rant about the lineup. I'm a little bit annoyed that this is sort of the lineup where Sabitzer and Brandt sort of play a double 10, but then you don't have more than one winger. With Gittens on the left side, I feel like there was a slight imbalance, and obviously it was the first start of Maximilian Bayer, so he was relatively ineffective as well. We can talk about this in a minute, but mostly I struggle with this backline actually more than I thought I would, because I just don't know if I am the biggest fan of Schlotterbeck as a left back. Obviously, he got sent off in this game. But just structurally, I am not a fan of this lineup. It just felt like very imbalanced to me, the entire lineup. I talked about the lack of automatism on a recent show, but this was a little bit more egregious. But before I go on like a 5-minute rant, Matthias, maybe your thoughts first, so it's not on me.
Okay. Where do I begin here? Okay.
This show has as much structure as Dortmund's build-up. Anyway.
Yeah. Let's. Okay. Start with positive. No. I can see.
End of segment.
I can see what Nuri Shahin is going for in the offensive third build-up-ish type system structure, whatever they're doing. There's a lot of fluidity of movement with absolutely zero end product. Defensively, however, I'm not a fan of a back three. I'm just not something I like, because I don't really think Dortmund need it. I don't think it warrants it. I mean, if you're going to play a back three, that means you have, correct me if I'm wrong, Stefan, 3 defenders. And if you have 3 central defenders, that means you are pulling another player out of a position either in midfield or attack. if my math serves me correctly, and we're still playing 11v11. Granted, Dortmund were playing 10v11 near the end. And if you only have 3 central defenders on your squad, why, by the name of all that is holy, would you start all 3 of them? Because what if somebody gets injured? Or what if, and I know this is a total hypothetical, Stefan, what if somebody gets sent off? Now, granted, you already have your 2 central defenders, but what if then you take another central defender off and you are left with only 1 actual central defender in your squad? And you're asking people like Emre Can, who... Emre Can, all credit, he will do whatever you ask him to do. He's like, play here? Fine, I'll play here. You want to play there? Fine, I'll play there. But some people, might say that this is not the best approach to squad management. Though some people might be me and might be you. And I don't get it, man. I don't get it. This rant is about as structureless as Dortmund.
It's fine.
I get what he's trying to do. I actually do. Like, I can see it. I'm like, this is what you're wanting to do. However...
Can you put that in words?
Well, what he's trying to do is like a fluid build-up so that it's easy to pull the opposition apart. And yes, Bremen had problems covering. The good thing is for Bremen is Dortmund had a problem like getting into an attacking position and shoot. Waldemar Anton had 2 shots. Maxi Bayer had none. Now, I don't know if this is a new form of football where it's good when a striker does not shoot, but I would very much like him to. In fact, if we look at Dortmund's attacking players, the nominal attacking players of Julian Brandt, who had 2 shots, Marcel Sabitzer, who is for me not an attacking player, but he had 1 shot, and then Gittens and Bayer had no shots. Their replacements, Malen and Adeyemi, each had 1 shot. It's not there. Pascal Gross definitely is the main guy in the side. If you look at the fact that he had 104 touches and he's not a central defender, he attempted 102 passes at 88% completion of his passes and 11 progressive passes and 51 carries. Granted, only 2 progressive, but that's not his main job. But other than that, I am struggling to understand why this is being done now. I don't get it. You've got 3 central defenders on your books, and here's the thing for Nuri Sahin. I don't know if he watched any football last season. I mean, he was on the Dortmund bench, so maybe he didn't watch football. But...
Wow.
I'm like, I don't get this, man. Like, you are playing Schlotterbeck, Süle, and Waldemar Anton. How many of these guys consistently play in a back 3? I'll wait for an answer. Exactly. So, what are we doing here? Like, if the squad was built that you've got 3 central defenders on the books and you don't want that disgruntled 4th guy who's rarely going to play, and you're like, we could pull Emre Can back if we need to. You're playing with a back 4. The squad was built for a back 4. Unless they built it for a back 3/back 5, in which case they're fucking morons. And I don't understand it. Like, anybody who's ever played a game like Football Manager and you are setting up your squad and you have 3 defenders on your squad, period, you're not going, well, shit, I'm going to play a back 3. No, because of what we just talked about. And I don't get it. I don't get it. The crazy thing is, Stefan, when Schlotterbeck was sent off and Dortmund defended better.
Yeah, with a backline consistent of, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think it was Waldemar Anton, it was Emre Can and Felix Metscher all in the back line. I don't know if Riasson was still on the field for that. I think he was made it the back four at that point. I think it was even the back five.
Yeah, Bensebaini was there, and he kind of slid sometimes in.
Yes,
and
so it was sort of a back five at the end. Like I tried to ask people to send me the final lineup, like the last 10 minutes or whatever it was, on Twitter, because I did not have the wit, let's say, to figure out what exactly the formation was for the final 10 minutes. I also was too lazy to go back into the game and not watch real life and see exactly what it was. But yeah, absolutely crazy. But I think the reason why Dortmund actually played better in the end had little to do with how the backline was set up, and more to do is that you actually had more attacking minded players.
Yes, Malen and Adeyemi. Yeah,
Malen and Adeyemi were both way more effective than. And that, I think, is the crux of this game. To me, the reason why Dortmund looked so bad is because both Julian Brandt and Marcel Sabitzer both did not have good games. And I think if they had any sort of, I don't know, be it dribbles or like good carries into the final third or passes into the final third or into the box, then it would all look much better. I mean, if we look, and this is probably the one of the most frustrating stats of this game. So when we talk about take-ons, successful take-ons, Karim Adeyemi had 2. I thought he had 3 because it was in like one move, but in the third one he was fouled. So I guess that didn't count. Marcel Sabitzer had 1, Jamie Gittens had 1 successful, and obviously the fourth player who had a successful take-on in this game is Gregor Kobel. And Matthias, so that to me, that statistic alone tells 2 stories. A, of Dortmund not being able to be the man-to-man system, because Dortmund should be able to dribble past more than, what's the total here, 5 players in the game against Werder Bremen. I mean, all kudos to Bremen, they're defending, but I actually think it should be better. And obviously the Gregor Kobel one is not because he, like you do in FIFA sometimes, just run forward with the goalkeeper and try to score. No, it was because Dortmund cannot, and that is to me almost more frustrating than the attacking output, cannot combine themselves out of a pressing. Dortmund had probably 8 or 9 yellow cards, right? Except for the Zule one, where I think it was Descent.
Yeah,
where
they
he
had
was
7. Yeah. And Zule, that was the I yelled at the ref and the ref got angry and gave you a bookie.
But every other yellow card they had was a transition moment for Bremen, and most of these transition moments were Dortmund losing the ball in their own third because Bremen pressed. Now the very first pressing wave that Bremen unleashed on Dortmund, I think, came exactly around the 5-minute mark, where it was, okay, now it's time for us to really start pressing. I think this is where Gregor Kobel actually had the successful dribble, because that was sort of the only way out of this pressing. And that really annoyed me, because it's a problem that Dortmund obviously had last season, and is something that they still have this season. I find that solutions need to be found ASAP, or you will concede a boatload of goals by being sloppy in possession. Be it Riasson or Schlotterbeck or whoever, and obviously there were also a few clankers by Emre Can. I think there are a couple of videos shared by Reese Edwards on Twitter, who did like a build-up fail compilation, basically, and it's like over a minute long, where Dortmund just slapstick passes straight into the opponents and whatnot, complete unforced errors, which, we can say, okay, it's maybe just still early in the season, but still, there were a couple ones where it was just horrific football to watch, and that to me is very egregious, and something that I was hoping that would stop under Nuri Sahin. And what I really hate most about it is that the gulf between the first game at home and the first away game was just so stark. And I was really hoping that the away form contrast, maybe Dortmund's baseline, if you will, would look a little bit better than it did on the road. Because Werder Bremen, except for them pressing well, did really have little thing else going for them. And sort of that was the only reason why Bremen although the XG was fairly low, even came to opportunities, because other than that, they had very precious little out of their own created stuff, let's say. So that is obviously annoying, but as I already said, my worst stats of the game is the passes into the penalty area, which is 3. 2 came by Pascal Groß and 1 came by Riasson. And if you say, okay, there are different ways to enter the penalty area, the other one obviously is carries. Well, guess what? Carries into the penalty area, the total amount of numbers is also 3, with 1 of Jamie Gittens, 1 Daniel Mahlen, and 1 Riasson. So, I was thinking about this game and thought, well, Dortmund barely showed up in Bremen's penalty area and had any action there, and that the total amount of carries and passes into the box, so I assume the touches were maybe around 6, 7, 8 or so. That to me is really horrific, and the worst 2 stats, although I'm combining a little bit, there is for this game. I think the amount of talent Dortmund have to only have 3 passes into the box and 3 carries into the box is just ridiculously bad. I don't even know how else to put it, Matthias, but to me, that really goes to show what a bungled lineup this is. Now, I will now come out and say I would have chosen a different lineup, and I would have kept things way more simple for me. Obviously, I'm not Nuri Sahin. I'm not trying to establish a wider scope of principles and maybe not work on an idea. But if I try to win this game, my system would have been a 4-1-4-1 system. I would have had Benza Bernini starting because he's an actual left back. Then in defense, I would have had 2 out of our 3 center backs. Honestly, right now, I don't even have a packing order for that. And on the right side, I would have had Riasson. In central midfield, I would have had Pascal Groß. And then if you want to have the double 10, fine. Then you can play Brandt and Sabitzer, or Brandt and Reina maybe. And then on the left, I would have started Karim Adeyemi, and on the right, I would have started Daniel Mahlen. And up front, I guess it would have been Maximilian Bayer. But actually, I would have started probably still Alea, because I would have not loaned it out on the final minute of the transfer window. So I would have had a much more rounded lineup with players in positions that suit them. Full stop. And now you, Matthias.
Well, Stefan, I mean, first of all, one thought that won't leave me is this is not the lineup or the system that Nuri Sahin wants Dortmund to utilize once Guirassy is fully fit and available. I think we'll see.
I'm praying to God that this is so.
Yeah, because Maxi Bayer, you would either put on a wing or you drop him behind the striker and then have Guirassy up top. You can still then have Julian Brandt being kind of your attacking playmaker, Sabitzer, who is kind of that classic box-to-box guy, and then your deep line guy who can pick up the ball, carry, transition, resist press really well, hold the ball well, is then Pascal Groß, and then Emre Can is on the bench. I think that's a very likely scenario. Now, I would completely scrap the back 3. I mean, they're going to have to. If they come out with a back 3 against Heidenheim, I mean, Heidenheim are going to just beat the crap out of them because you don't even have a Schlotterbeck. I mean, you're going to have to play Emre Can there. And it's like you said.
Dortmund, sorry if I interrupt you, but did Dortmund not play a back 4 in this game? Wasn't Riasson also in the back line?
No, I don't even, honestly. It shifted so many times because then Gittens was asked to come back. I saw it as a back 3 with Gittens kind of being a wing-backish type player. It just didn't feel right. I mean, I think that's the problem. Like you said, like, what are they playing? And for me too, it's like, what are they playing? Because Schlotterbeck never felt like he was playing at a left back position because he was slotting in so narrow. It just didn't feel like a back 4, to be perfectly honest.
I mean, the setup I feel like is sort of a hybrid system again, just like with Marzen, where Schlotterbeck, I mean, he is behind Pascal Groß, the guy who had the most passes into the final third. Like, to me, it's similar where he plays more centrally in possession and out of possession. He goes wider, but you're right. In actuality, obviously, you can't just drift out wide. You will actually play more tucked inside. So I think for large chunks, if you actually watch the game, it does look like a back three. So it's not like that you're wrong.
Let's call it an asymmetric back three.
Yeah.
I think what it used to be called the pendelnde Dreierkette, where it just kind of like a pendulum swings, whether it's a back three or a back four, depending on which side you're moving from. I mean, the funny thing is, if you look at FBref, they have it set up as a 4-2-3-1 with Zabitza as the right winger. I mean, which he wasn't.
Yeah, there was no right winger.
No.
There was Riasson.
And that's where I'm like, okay, it's kind of an asymmetric.
Yes.
3-4-3-ish thing. There's no system there. There's no structure there whatsoever. And that's where I just struggle with that. But yeah, you bring out a back four with a traditional trained left back in Bensebaini. Whether you love him or not, he's better than what they have right now. And you also can't forget, for a huge chunk of last season, he was out injured. So I feel like we didn't even really get to see him play in a system that may or may not suit him more. And then you have Riasson just playing at that fullback position, which is more his thing, not asking him to be more than he is. And then you start off. I think Anton and Schlotterbeck is a good center back pairing, but you kind of have to let these players play together to build that confidence, because it comes back. Oh my gosh, Stefan, I feel like I've been saying the same shit for 6 years or 7 years, where it's like, if your goalkeeper does not have confidence in the back line in front of him, he can be the world's greatest goalkeeper and he's going to make mistakes. Now, Kobel hasn't gone there yet, but he could. And
he's about to enter the Roman Bürki zone.
The problem is your defenders don't have trust in each other then, because they can't. How can they? They don't know where everyone is supposed to be. And you saw that in the first match, where one of the three central defenders wasn't close enough to a man, and they had an opening. I think about that Frankfurt just crazy miss that they had. And that was simply a positional error from a Dortmund defender, because they don't know where they need to be. And it's obvious, and they feel like they have to compensate then from someone else. I think back to probably Akanji's worst season, where Dortmund never seemed to play the same back line, and he was overcompensating, and then Bürki was overcompensating, and then Hummels came back, and all of a sudden nobody knew where they had to play anymore, and it was just a nightmare. And I will credit Terzic with the fact that he got that sorted. And but then obviously in an attacking sense, Dortmund were just not there, and that cost them a lot of matches in that regard. But here, there's no flow, there's no rhythm, and other sides do have that. Now, granted, other sides are either the same side, more or less, that was playing last season with the same coach. Dortmund don't have that. And I understand that Nuri Sahin wants to bring in a new way of playing and a new, philosophy or whatever you want to call it.
I think his word is principle.
Yeah, fine. Principles. You can have all the principles you want, but you still need a functioning team. And
you know what the Stefan Butzko principle is?
Don't play
have
like
a fucking left back. Have a fucking left back.
Yeah.
I don't understand why Schlotterbeck. First of all, we only have 3 center backs. This is going to be a gauntlet of games. Hello, we have 8 Champions League games, and they might all matter. It's not like, the final match day of the Champions League, we're already qualified for the round of 16. Well, that's the rotated one. No, might be different this time. You don't know. But either way, between the Heidenheim game and Christmas, that's 15 weeks. There will be 20 games. And we all know Dortmund, they are obviously never prone to injuries, especially not muscular injuries. So no worries at all. So I really hope that Filippo Mane is good to go and ready. And I love that Nuri Sahin is saying, we don't need a left back. Oh, we also don't need a center back. Well, because we have enough options in the squad. So, okay, one option is to play one of your 3 center backs in left back. So that's not ideal, as we just saw against Bremen. And the other options is apparently Emre Can play center back and Felix Metscher also play center back. Felix Metscher is not even good in his good position. How is he supposed to be good as a center back for, let's say, more than 17 minutes against better opposition than Werder Bremen? I'm not entirely sure I'm signing up for this. Now, granted, young Couto will hopefully be back, but we don't even know if he's any good yet because according to FBref, his defensive stats are traffic cone. Maybe a traffic cone itself has a higher percentage of tackling success. So we'll see about that, but obviously I have my doubts. So this is something I am really upset about, is how we go into this season with this squad, because I only thought by the end of the transfer window there would be one more left back signed. Honestly thought that, and also maybe one more center back. Maybe not of the highest shelf or caliber, which is to have a little bit of depth. But right now it doesn't seem that way. So I really hope that Kaba and Mane, and obviously betting on your own prospects is a good thing in general. I just hope they're far enough, because right now I don't know. 2 seasons ago, Dortmund not having enough left backs, center backs, it arguably cost them the championship, because who was it? Could not hit the ball in the final minutes of Stuttgart. I think it was Koulibaly. But anyway, Matthias, that is part of my rant, and I thought the Bremen game exposed it, obviously, to a certain extent. And what I also find a little bit upsetting is that, as I already mentioned, Dortmund did loan out Sebastian Aller. Because I understand that Maximilian Bayer costs 30 million, and obviously you want to play him and arguably in the striker position, but you already said yourself, when Guirassy is back, you want Bayer sort of in behind there somewhere or around him. But as a lone striker option, at least in this game, it did not look great. Maybe going forward, it'll look better. But I want a more true number 9 going forward. That is just my preference, but also at the same time, as I previously mentioned, the amount of games, I think Dortmund will need a little bit more depth, because Guirassy might pick up another injury or might not be able to play every game. And if you say, okay, this lineup will look much, much better with Guirassy in it, because he is a better fit, then yeah, that's, to me, is going to be problematic. So I don't know about you, Matthias, but I find Dortmund's squad depth, considering the gauntlet of games coming down the pike, is insufficient. That's how I would call it. And Sebastian Kehl has been praised by Ruhrnachrichten for his many great transfers, but if I had to now give a final sort of rating out of 10 with the last minute transfers happening and not happening, I may be at a 6 out of 10. I think they're, just because of the depth, I think this Dortmund squad, even though they have a lot of players, but not maybe all for the right positions, I think they're going to struggle.
Well, there are a couple of things. I mean, I'm not going to be that harsh just yet, because it's like been a minute and a half. There are a few things I'd like to know more about, and I'm sure there's somebody very well connected that can answer the question. And it doesn't matter. It's really insignificant because it's the past and you can't change it. But I'd love to know what the issue was on the Ian Maatsen transfer, because it obviously, didn't boil down to whether or not Dortmund was willing to pay 30 million euros, because they obviously were willing to pay 30 million euros. I wouldn't even say necessarily it's a big, unless he's just getting paid ungodly amounts of money at Aston Villa, which is possible because it's the Premier League and they have monopoly money. But given that you got rid of the Royce and Hummels wages, which were not insignificant, there was some room there, because quality left back is one of the hardest positions to recruit, because quality fullbacks that are great attacking players tend to become wingers over time. I just look at Gareth Bale. It's probably one of the best examples, who started as as a fullback, then became a winger, and then at the end was essentially a striker, more or less.
You need to take a below average striker and turn him into a fullback like Lukas Piszczek. That's or Eric Grund. Apparently that's the way it goes.
Yeah. Or I mean, you can even do workhorse players. I mean, Riasson is a workhorse player and he works. He does it. He gets the job done. And with Dortmund having the attacking power that they do, and they have powerful attacking players ahead of fullback positions, you don't need that playmaking fullback. Now with Koto, maybe they have it. We don't know. We'll have to see. But as things are right now, unless there's a fitness issue with Bensebaini or something behind the scenes, I also don't understand why you would start 3 central defenders when you only have 3 quality central defenders. Now, I understand you're trying to keep them all happy, and that's not easy to do. But you know what?
We can't play politics. We need to win games.
No, and at the end of the day, the amount of matches Dortmund are going to be playing now, because we also have the Club World Cup. Can't forget that. Everyone's going to get playing time. That's like a given in football right now when you are in that echelon of clubs. But I have no problem with the Sebastian Aller transfer, to be perfectly honest, because you're going to have Maxi Bayer and then Guirassy and then Aller sitting on the bench doing nothing again. And given that, he needs a place where he can play regularly. It's the same thing I said about Moukoko. He needs the playing time to get into a flow and to get into a rhythm, and then the goals will hopefully come. And if they do come, great. He comes back, you keep him, or you cash in big for him. Or if the goals don't come, you sell him on. But you have to find out. And Aller was not going to find out come a month from now on a regular basis when you have Bayer and a fit Guirassy playing. Where would they slot in? I mean, if even a Moukoko, who in my opinion needs to be way more humble than he is, if he's already not happy, Sebastian Haller as a veteran older striker, kind of like a Niklas Füllkrug, they wouldn't put up with that. They wouldn't settle at that point in their careers anymore. So that's not for me the issue. The issue for me is, like you said, it's just that depth defensively and at back. I mean, Emre Can is way more competent in a defensive positioning than, say, Axel Witsel. But but if you slot Can back and then Mecha back, that kind of reminds me of, let's put Axel Witsel in the back line. Which Axel Witsel in the back line, that worked out well for Atletico Madrid against Borussia Dortmund last season too, didn't it? And that's like, how can you already fall into that? And the easy way you fall into that in this match is that you take off Niklas Süle, bring in Bensebaini, and then Schlotterbeck gets sent off, who was already on a booking. Like, it's just... I mean, granted, you're a little bit damned if you do, damned if you don't. Since you started 3 center backs, maybe you don't start your 3 center backs. And then you don't have that situation, because if Süle was on the bench, then you would have brought him in for either Schlotterbeck or Anton, who were booked. And then you wouldn't have that issue. The Bensebaini booking later in the match, I felt it's kind of like the Pascal Gross booking at the end of the match. That was kind of the tactical foul that I'm okay with. But the fact that by, minute 50 or minute 48, you had all 3 center backs were booked. That's problematic. And, it was problematic against Bremen. Now imagine that happens against, I don't know, a Leipzig, a Leverkusen, a Heidenheim, teams that are aggressive and will go after you. They'll put you under way more pressure, and, finishing a match with 10 at that point is almost a miracle. So those are kind of the things that need to be worked out. And I think the high amount of bookings in this match, and that's something that Dortmund are not known for, are a high amount of bookings. That is symptomatic of a greater issue that you talked about, these transitional fouls, these, crap, we lost possession and now I got to stick a boot out foul, like these instinctive fouls. That when they happen within the first 40 minutes, you've got a problem that you need to stamp out. And I think naturally they're going to have a system shift in the next match because Schlotterbeck's out. So, you're going to play a more traditional back four, if this was indeed a back four, in terms of having Anton and Zule start with Ben Sabaini on the left and Riasson on the right. Anything but that as your starting back four is pure insanity at this point. And hopefully they play really, really well, and then Nuri Sahin goes, okay, fine. I'll play 2 center backs and 2 fullbacks that are actually trained fullbacks. And that way you don't get back into this position that Dortmund have now created for themselves. Because, it's easy to blame others, but when you are the architect of your own problems, yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend the other day, and he said basically that he is annoyed that with Nuri Sahin, we have to watch him make mistakes and learn. And if he had signed a more experienced coach, just maybe some of these learnings already would have been made elsewhere, or the mistakes would have already been made elsewhere, and sort of said that obviously Nuri Sahin is asking for patience, but he kind of ran out of patience already, because we've had this sort of scenario a couple times now, also with Terzic, which is obviously understandable. But what annoys me about the Aller transfer is not that Sebastian Aller personally isn't in Dortmund anymore, because I think from his position is probably best that he gets more regular playing time elsewhere and gains the rhythm, all the things you said. But I just need Dortmund to have more depth. And having an Aller on the bench is obviously a little bit expensive, but I do still think that Dortmund need a type of player like him. Now, obviously, maybe something that's not as expensive would also work out, but all I'm saying is that, say, look at RB Leipzig, who have 4 strikers on their roster. They have Andre Silva, they have Yusuf Paulsen, they have Sesko, and they have Openda. And obviously, they are not all going to be happy as well. But Openda and Sesko are their main guys. I think their evaluation is above 100 million if you combine them. Yusuf Paulsen probably worth, 5, 6, 7 million or so at this point. Andre Silva, also not that great in terms of transfer value. But I feel like you just need a couple of 1B, 1C options as your number 9, just in order to have that depth, and to also in order to change things during a game. We saw it with the German national team, who played Kai Havertz up front for a long time, but when they realized, okay, the only way we actually get effectively into the box is with crosses, then you have to have Niklas Füllkrug in up your sleeve and bring him on so he can head in the equalizer or winning goal. And I feel like right now Dortmund don't have that. They have Guirassy, but if he is not an option, then there is not going to be a striker that can just connect with the head in the box, because Maxi Bayer is not that guy. I think you just need to have a bit of variance, and if Guirassy is out, you are already very limited on the striker position and need to adjust your playing style quite a lot. And I think that lack of optionality is an issue. That's all I'm saying. Obviously, it's always a problem when you have a large squad to keep everyone happy, and Nuri Sahin said himself he likes a thinner squad, maybe also for that reason. But that's just one big concern that I have, especially for the striker position. When it comes to the number 8/10 position, Dortmund are almost overstacked. You have Brandt, you have Sabitzer, you have Reina, Felix Metscher can play there, Pascal Groß can play there, etc. And I'm pretty sure Gittens and the Duranville, even though right now we're playing them as wingers, I'm sure they are also capable of playing more centrally as well. So, and from that standpoint, we're good. I also think the winger situation with Adeyemi, Malen, Gittens, and Duranville is fairly good. I don't know how you see it, but you have 2 established guys. To me, Adeyemi and Malen are those to a certain extent. Obviously, Adeyemi is still struggling here and there. And with Gittens and Duranville, you have 2 two guys that are coming up that can make a difference from the bench. I think that's overall a pretty good setup. It's not like everything is horrific with Dortmund, and obviously we're both hopefully patient enough to give Nuri Sahin time. I think it was on Sirius XM yesterday being interviewed. They asked me how long it'll take, and I said probably months. I'm okay for Dortmund to struggle about a half season, and if that means they've things more figured out in the second half of the season, and then can maybe climb up the table a little bit if we're like in 5th or 6th place in this half series, because I honestly believe it's going to be a bit of a struggle bus for Dortmund, and hopefully one more transfer window can help them sort a couple of things out that they weren't able to do this summer. Because Dortmund did do a lot of things this summer, but just can't do 100% of the things in one transfer window either. So I'm a little bit understanding after all the F-bombs and rants we dropped.
Yeah, I mean, Dortmund's depth in midfield is there. I mean, that they got that figured out. I have no questions, qualms, issues there at all. It's like you said, I think we're missing Nelson Valdez or Adrian Ramos. In that sense of an inexpensive
or a Berbatov or so.
Yeah, an inexpensive seasoned striker who's fine playing, 20 times off the bench and maybe a half a dozen starts. That's okay with that. The same as in that central defensive role. I think those are the two areas where that depth is missing. The problem is the players that Dortmund had on the squad that were could have been that would never ever have been happy in that situation. You do have to think of locker room chemistry in that sense when they're gone. You don't run up against that as much. And like you said earlier about the buildup out of defense, again, everybody knows what they're trying to do. Pass your way out of the press, and then you've got that buildup because if the other team presses really high, you've got oodles of space. And with Dortmund's technical ability and extraordinary pace in attack and transition there, you're just going to rip the opposition apart. However, your best passing defender is Mats Hummels, who is no longer on the books. And, nobody else is that. I mean, Schlotterbeck is your closest to that, and occasionally he can really pass one, but he's not Mats Hummels. I can't evaluate Waldemar Anton perfectly in that sense. Niklas Süle is not that guy. He has those moments, but he's not that guy. And if you mark out Schlotterbeck, then your buildup is already struggling because, again, Riasson is not that guy. Benzebaini is not that guy. Kuto, from everything I know and the few little bits I've seen from him, he could be that guy. And then you have that other option to build up in a playmaking wide sense, kind of like what you were able to do with Ian Matson. Or the other option is, which they were doing then towards the end of the match, I saw that a few times, where Pascal Gross would slide in between the two central defenders. And that's a way I think you can play that kind of swinging back three, back four in a way that works. And Pascal Gross can obviously be that build-up player. But then he needs Zavitsa to sit a little bit deeper than he was, and Brandt to honestly just play better. Jamie Gittens in this match was non-existent. I mean, he just, as we say in German, hat nicht stattgefunden. Like, he just did not appear. And the moment Man and Adeyemi were on the pitch, man, and especially when both were on the pitch at the same time, the dynamic in attacking sense completely changed. Like, I felt like every time one of them was on the ball, there was danger for Bremen. And Bremen felt that too. Like, they immediately, you could see there was a little bit more, they were a little bit more nervous. And that just simply wasn't there before. It completely stagnated because, yeah, you had Gittens on the left, but you had nothing on the right. And so the lack of balance in the squad in terms of how you're building up and where you man the space, that really, that should have been worked out in the preseason. And like you said, it's going to take a while to really figure out where things sit with Nuri Sahin. And as far as an inexperienced coach taking over Xabi Alonso was a completely inexperienced coach. I mean, at the end of the day, he had less experience coaching, or at least as much as Nuri Sahin did in that sense. But it's fair to say that maybe he was further developed as far as a tactician in that sense than Nuri Sahin is currently. So we'll have to play the waiting game. The good thing is, Stefan, the Dortmund online fan base is super patient. And they will totally not wig out after every match that's not won by a 5-goal difference.
Well, here's the thing, Matthias. To me, there are just a couple personnel options that annoy me, which or choices rather from Shine, like putting Adeyemi in as a number 9 against Frankfurt already didn't sit well to me, because there are a couple of things we just talked about, things that are there to learn and not learn. I think Dortmund have already learned, it's true and tested. The best setup for Malen and Adeyemi is you play Adeyemi on the left and Malen on the right. And to have, I think it was Adeyemi up front and Malen on the left against Frankfurt. That obviously did not work out as well as it could. And of course, Gittens then makes a difference. And again, something I was hoping to then see against Bremen, especially with Bayer starting, then okay. Gittens played well and maybe he deserved to start. Although I'm still feeling like his impact is probably higher off the bench. But I just feel like if you don't play something that's sort of one of the most lethal combinations in the Bundesliga, which you've already tested out, because when both Adeyemi and Malen are clicking from those wing positions, I think they are one of the best duos in the league like that. If you don't utilize that option while you're trying to figure 15 other things out, then maybe just do one thing that's already tried and tested and it works. That's just my 2 cents on that. Obviously, Nuri Sahin wants to try things out, and I'm actually all for that. I like experimenting. But yeah, those were just my opinions. But other than that, and obviously playing 3 center backs and the back line is also not my favorite thing. I mean, Nico Schlotterbeck, as we know, he had a couple of giveaways. And one thing I really have to rant about is obviously the actual sending off. We've talked about it a little bit now, but there was just no need for Nico Schlotterbeck to go there in for a sliding challenge. It was a 3-on-1 situation. I think it was it Jinnah? I'm not entirely sure who he actually fouled, but he was not in a position to get a clean shot off in that moment. He probably would have went out wide, and that probably would have been that. But either way, if you're Nico Schlotterbeck, I think you need to have a better awareness in that exact situation to read the game a little bit better, and that is probably what frustrates me the most, that he did not have the best read on that situation to make this really boneheaded challenge. And now obviously Dortmund have only 2 centre-backs available against Heidenheim. And if there is any foul trouble in that game, Dortmund can't just, or an injury, Dortmund can't just bring on a 3rd centre-back unless it's money. Then maybe you have to push Emre Can into the back line, stuff like that. I don't know. Either way, I'm out of rant energy for this podcast, but I was really furious when that happened because it felt super unnecessary. And the other thing I want to note is that we talked about Bremen's pressing and how well it was, or how good it was. I did not think that Dortmund pressed as well as in previous games, be it the Frankfurt game or the other one, because to me, Dortmund's pressing, when they really tried to press Bremen with intensity, you felt like the second wave of pressing, the players were already too far away from their men they needed to press. I feel like there was too much space to close down, and they allowed Bremen too much time on the ball, essentially. So I think there needs to be a bit more emphasis on how do we press the opponent effectively and these things should already be internalized. And the fact that they are not, even though it's match day 2, but I'm harsh. I feel like these things in the preseason should be worked on, and modern football. This isn't the Klopp era where pressing is such a new concept. All these players should know much better how to do it. So yeah, that was also a little bit disappointing to see Dortmund's pressing not be as on point as I wanted to be. Anyway, Matthias, those are my final thoughts on this hapless scoreless draw. I don't know if you have much to add.
I completely agree. I mean, Schlotterbeck, I mean, the challenge, again, the player he was going against, and I think you were right in the sense that it was in Njima. I'm not 100% sure either, but he was drifting away. He was drifting outside. And, man, there are so many times you see defenders foul a player who's drifting away from goal. Like, just let him drift. Like, he's not going anywhere. That is dangerous. And
you need to trust your teammates. That's maybe the overcompensating thing you already talked about.
100%. And he was playing out of position. He isn't playing in the way that he should be playing. He's a center back, central center back. If he was asked to be more of a left back, then you get these kind of mistakes because he's overcompensating and he doesn't trust those players around him. His bearings are lost. Because if he's sitting as a left back in that situation, you are the furthest left person. You know, if someone's moving to your left on that side of the pitch, they're just going to the touchline. If he's playing centrally and someone's moving slightly to the left and you don't think anyone's to your left, then you're not entirely sure where they're going. And I think that was down to it. And then obviously his instincts of the past of reckless challenges kind of go in there. And that's something that kind of died down a little bit last season, especially in the second half of the season. And this just kind of reinforced that whole, they're not sure of each other. And I watched that match with my son who plays for his high school. And I said, yeah, don't ever do that. You know, if you're in that position, a player is moving away from the goal, is moving to the outside, shadow him, stay upright, stay on your feet, and stay with him. There's no reason to go down because you're either going to miss. I mean, your options are obviously a great tackle. Yeah, yay for you. But if somebody else picks it up on the attacking side in a deeper position, you're on the ground and you can't stop them either. And now they have an open run at goal. But most likely you're either going to miss and then they're past you, or you're going to commit a foul. And in this case, that's what happened. You get sent off, and it's just never a good idea. Just let them go away. Like they're not doing anything to you. But I see that every single week for years on end where defenders just make that challenge where the player's moving away. I mean, even Valdemar Anton's booking, the player was moving to the outside. Just let him go to the outside. You even have support on the outside with Riasson. Just let him go. And don't worry about it. Just scoot back into your position and cover. And that it's frustrating when you see it. And obviously, it's instinctual, so it's easy to say when you're just watching it from the couch. But those are little things that make a huge difference and would have saved Dortmund a sending off and 2 bookings in that case.
Yeah. Also, I'm fairly certain if that challenge hadn't happened, probably would have seen Gio Reyna again, and that's something I personally would have liked because I really liked his cameo against Frankfurt, so I would have liked to see him build on that, but because of the way Shine then had to react with personnel, obviously that didn't happen, and I feel like it took more away from Dortmund's chances to win the game in the final 15 minutes because Bremen were they were spent, and B, I feel like a bit more creativity to play instead of be it Brandt or Sabitzer would have massively helped because both these players were not really doing all that well in this game. So I feel like if you had Reina, Adeyemi, and Malen on at the same time, something would have been going more for you. But maybe it would have been different because due to the red card, Bremen also afforded Dortmund way more spaces because Bremen then tried a little bit more to win the game themselves.
Yeah, and to your point, Gio Reyna is the natural Brandt sub. And so what did we see right when Schlotterbeck is sent off? Nemecha comes on for Brandt because you have to make that defensive sub. And I totally understand that. But if that sending off doesn't happen, probably bring on Nemecha for Sabitzer and Reyna for Brandt. And there you go. And that already changes the dynamic in that sense, because Nemecha then falls back into more traditional box-to-box type of role, and Reina more in that attacking playmaker role, which then also frees up Pascal Gross, because not everything has to be funneled through him all the time. And I think that's more a recipe for success.
Yeah. Also, Dortmund need to, I've had Jonathan Harding on here to talk about Gross. I think Dortmund also need to be careful of conserving Pascal Gross a little bit, and I don't think he needs to play 110 minutes every game. So you need to figure out a way to be successful without Pascal Gross in your midfield, because right now it feels like he is your best guy when it comes to connecting offense and defense and making great key passes. And obviously his set piece routine is also really good. His set piece delivery, because let's face it, that was Dortmund's best chance to win this game, was set pieces. Because right now, and I'm surprised to say this, but in comparison to everything else, set pieces do look like the best thing that Dortmund have figured out so far. So at least we've got that going for us. So maybe next to a set piece coach, Dortmund also need a score from open play coach. and then things will work out. I don't know. But Matthias, should we talk about these Mislintat reports coming out today, or is this something we should table for next week?
May as well bring it up.
All right, because and obviously I'm talking here through things I've read from aggregators, because I'm not subscribed to Sportbild itself, but basically there were reports coming out today or yesterday maybe, that Sven Mislintat is sort of a little bit disgruntled that two transfers, namely Jan Koto and Maximilian Bayer, were done without his input, basically. That's sort of the gist of the reporting, and obviously the headline is whether he be out the door in the short term again or not. I don't know if we'll go so far or not, but it is certainly interesting, again, that information like that is trickling through. And my question to you, Matthias, is this a topic that we actually have to actively worry about? Because I don't know about you, but I personally would like to have Sven Mislintat on our books and someone who is very much involved in the squad planning, because I feel like he has more talent when it comes to that than Sebastian Kehl. That obviously is something, like I said, I feel that because I don't know for sure, because I'm obviously not sitting there and I'm not involved in the process, nor do I see the process of how Dortmund do sign players. But nevertheless, this is something we need to worry about, that there is going to be a rift between those guys that's cannot be repaired.
Well, I think it's definitely something those above them need to keep an eye on, i.e. Lars Ricken. It's annoying because it's a side show distraction that doesn't need to be. Obviously, Sven Mislintat has a massive ego, and that's simply based on all of these reports always coming out. Whenever someone's upset, you hear about it in the press, and that speaks to ego and insecurity. So I don't think it'll have any impact on the team and how they play and Uli Sahin, but it's just annoying noise that's not needed in a season that's obviously about building and structuring for the future. It will sort itself out one way or another, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, at the end of the day, if it turns out that these transfers that Dortmund are just lacking that depth, and if Lars Ricken or other people were presented with other options from, say, a Sven Mislintat, and those were pushed aside, well, then a decision needs to be made. And then I think this is also a make or break season for Sebastian Kehl, by the way. I think if this becomes a real rough patch, and those open gaps become wider in the squad depth in those key areas, I think then Sebastian Kiel won't be around much longer either after this season. So if Dortmund it would behoove them to try to keep Sven Mislintat around as long as possible. And then eventually you'll probably have to make a decision between one or the other. And I think they're hoping that at least they can get through the season before they get pushed into that. It's an annoying noise that I could really do without.
I totally blanked, Matthias. I totally forgot about the Champions League draw, but we obviously have to talk about that too. It's going to be away to Club Brugge, then at home to Celtic, then away to Real Madrid, at home to Sturm Graz, then Dinamo Zagreb, I think it is, against Dortmund in Zagreb, and then December 11th, close to my birthday, Dortmund host Barcelona, and then the last two games are away to Bologna and then at home to Shakhtar Donetsk. What do you make of this draw? A lot of people told me this is probably one of the easiest draws for the pot 1 teams. I don't know if you have the entire list in front of you, probably not, but just in general, are you looking forward to the slate of games? Do you think this new format is cool, or do you want the old format back? What are your thoughts on the Champions League draw overall?
In terms of the format, I have no idea. In theory, it sounds really interesting. I'm okay with interesting and a change because if you have more meaningful games, it makes for a more meaningful and interesting overall competition. As far as the draw, I mean, of course, Real Madrid and Barcelona, kind of not easy. I mean, none of these are easy, but if you've got Club Brugge, by the way, where I will be in a week and a half, by the way.
Beautiful there.
It is. Celtic, Sturm Graz, Dinamo Zagreb, Bologna, especially it's a different Bologna now because, their manager's no longer there. And then Shakhtar Donetsk. Yeah, it's very favorable for Dortmund. These are very winnable matches, Madrid and Barcelona notwithstanding. I think if you calculate, okay, those are 2 losses, and the Barcelona match, though, being at home, which I think is a huge advantage. Real Madrid away from home, Zagreb away from home will not be easy. by any stretch of the imagination.
No away game will be easy for Dortmund.
No, but I think, Zagreb is Zagreb. I think Bologna away from home, okay, fine, it's Bologna away from home. But other than that, I think Dortmund could have had a much worse draw. I think this is a favorable draw in the sense of you also don't have to travel to Celtic, which I think helps. So, I think Dortmund will come out of this and advance to the next round. If they don't, that would be a massive disappointment.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, do you think they will qualify outright, or do you think Dortmund will only make the playoffs for the round of 16?
Well, I'm not comfortable enough yet with the format to truly gauge that. If, they win everything, but then they lose against Real Madrid and Barcelona, if that means it's an automatic qualification, I don't know. So I'm hopeful that that's what that means, but I'll be perfectly honest, I'm not familiar enough with the new format yet to be able to judge that.
I mean, as far as I know, there's just going to be one big league system, and you need to be in the top so and so many teams to qualify directly, and then there's a cutoff where then there will be one playoff round played. I don't have it right in front of me right now to know which is the minimum position you need to reach to definitely be in the round of 16. Maybe it's the top 16 teams. Not entirely sure.
I want to say it's the top 8.
Might be that, but I'll be honest, my confidence in Dortmund in the Champions League is not as high as last season, even though they just reached the Champions League final, simply because Edin Terzic's style, I think, suits the Champions League way more than probably what Nuri Sahin is trying to do, because Nuri Sahin is probably trying to play a bit more in the Champions League like he likes to play in the league, and I think the more risk-averse style of an Edin Terzic probably helps more to be good in that competition. And B, and it's a massive B for me, is that Mats Hummels is no longer there, because his experience and his leadership, I think, were absolutely integral for Dortmund to have a really good Champions League campaign last season. And the fact that he's no longer there, I think, is going to be felt most on the international stage in the Königsklasse. Those are my 2 thoughts on that. So, and considering that Dortmund also, as you said, the new Bologna, it's also a new BVB in a certain way. So I think that Dortmund will probably need to play one playoff game against whoever.
It's likely,
to make the round of 16. Those are my thoughts overall. I'm excited about this draw. Would I have preferred a different team than Real Madrid and Barcelona from the pot 1? Maybe, but at the end of the day, I don't really care that much. I think the new format is cool, and it's nice that you just play against 8 different teams throughout the year. But between this September 18th and January 29th, it's going to be absolutely insane this season. I really hope there's not going to be a super mega injury crisis as it has happened so often, or we will all be royally screwed.
And on that note,
it's time to end the show. So everyone out there, as always, thank you for listening. We'll be back with a preview of the Heidenheim match and the Bruges match, I assume. By the way, Matthias, you are an international man of mystery. Do you say Brugge or Bruges? What is your preferred name for this city?
I tend to default to Brugge, just because that's how I grew up saying Brugge. It really depends on which side of the linguistic line I'm in Belgium at a given time as to how I dare pronounce it. But I tend to go with Brugge, but that's probably just the German in me.
I always said Brugge until the movie In Bruges came out, and then I've switched to Bruges. But I mean, I think they call themselves Club Brugge. I have to check on that. But yeah, that's all next episode. Matthias, thank you so much for ranting through this chaotic Yellow Wall Pod episodes. If there ever was one, this is certainly one. And I still had fun recording this, and everyone out there, I hope you enjoyed this complete mayhem. Like I said, until next week, goodbye.